The day we have all been waiting for has finally arrived. Nathaniel Hackett has been fired from the Denver Broncos after a disastrous massacre of a performance on Christmas Sunday against the Rams, giving up a 50-burger, and also having a fight break out on your sideline. The Broncos have decided to move on from Nathaniel Hackett before the season comes to an end. We are live for the news. I don't want to say celebrating because that's a little mean. Never talk about another man's job, but this franchise, this fan base is way too proud to be in the midst of a 7-year playoff drought, and they will be going on to their 6th head coach in the last 8 seasons when they make a hire in 2023. But I need to know, what is your one-word reaction to Hackett being fired? We're going to let the audience build up, let everyone click onto the notification and whatnot. But get in the chat right now. Before we really jump into the nitty-gritty, the news of this story, I want to hear from everyone watching what your one-word reaction is. Me? I got to go hallelujah, all right? We all knew this was going to happen, and I have heard and read online about there's no sense in firing him before the season ends. That's just sports talk radio stretching a little bit and making something out of nothing. I push back on that. You want to know what the advantage is to firing a bad coach before the season is up? You could win games. Why is that such a horrible idea? Look at the Carolina Panthers. They moved on from Matt Rule, and now they are in the playoff hunt. I applaud and salute the Broncos organization, the front office, for deciding, you know what, enough is enough. Losing to Baker Mayfield and a 4-win Rams team, 51-14, with the fight breaking out on the sideline, that is enough. We have seen enough, and Hackett is done. Let me see what everyone's saying. We got a first super chat coming in. Appreciate you. It comes in from Boinkius Maximus. I watched Gladiator last night. It was much better than the Broncos game, so shout out Maximus. The one word is finally, right? That's in the title, I think. So salute to you. This is finally. We knew it was going to happen. I think we kind of knew it week 1 when he trotted out Brandon McManus for a 64-yard field goal with Russell Wilson. Now, at the time, we didn't know Russell Wilson kind of sucked. But in the moment, it was, you just traded for Russ, and you're going to go for a 64-yarder instead of 4th and 4. That was a big red flag, right? That was a big, oh shit, he might suck as a head coach moment. And so, finally, indeed. Now we're moving on to Cut Wilson. So, we'll talk about Russell Wilson later on. I was literally looking at his contract details before I went to bed last night. You are stuck with him in 2023 and in 2024. And if you move on from him after 2 more seasons, the dead cap hit is only $49 million, which would be an NFL record. Now, the good news for Broncos country is they have the richest owners in the NFL. So might they decide, we don't want to start our NFL ownership career with being the worst team in football? We'll cut bait with Russ, and we'll eat the dead money. But let me know. Yes, coming in from Elon. Elon, great to see you. We have 115 people watching already. That's about as much as we had at times during the Broncos-Rams game yesterday. What does that say? Right? More people are interested in tuning in to Hackett being fired than actually wanting to watch the team yesterday. That is how low and how bad it got for this team. So, I think Hackett's a good dude. Let's go Broncos. I agree with you. As we all sort of celebrate, and you know what? I even brought champagne on, actually. I do think Hackett is a good dude. He's a nice guy. Would love to get a beer with him. I hope he sticks around in the NFL. Right? It's not like a Josh McDaniels situation where he is something you want to scrape off the bottom of your shoe. But he was clearly not made out to be an NFL head coach. We got another super chat coming in from Boinkius Maximus. Hackett is a good guy. It's that he just isn't fit for a head coaching job. The only reason why we hired him was to try and lure in Aaron Rodgers. I agree, as we all sort of get carried away a little bit of hip hip hooray, the Wicked Witch of the West is dead sort of talk here. Hackett's a good dude. Like we said, he was just out of his reach, right? He was out of his element. He was in over his head. He was lucky to get hired, and It was clearly a swing and a miss, right? It was just not meant to be. Now, with that being said, I want to switch gears here really quickly while I let the audience build up some more. Who is your top Hackett replacement, right? Who is the number one guy you want to see hired next year? I've got a couple names. I got 10 exactly. We'll run through that later on in the show. But let me know right now, Sean Payton's the first one I see. So a report came out that Sean Payton is sort of building like the Avengers of the dream team of coaches not in the NFL right now. And it's a great list of names, right? You've got DC Vic Fangio, Sean Payton. Now, I don't think Vic Fangio would want to come back to the Broncos and be their DC, which might be a hiccup. But Sean Payton is a grand slam hire. People always say home run, grand slam if they were to go get him. All right, Frank Reich, Sean or Frank Reich, Dan Quinn, Jim Harbaugh. Now, if Michigan wins the Natty, maybe Harbaugh decides I want to go win a Super Bowl. I don't think the Broncos are probably the team where he wants to start that journey. Now, I have seen some people say, you mean whoever will take the job. And I think there's some truth to that. It's not a very attractive job at the moment. You have the Niners' first-round pick. You don't have a second-round pick. And you are tied to Russell Wilson. How about this? You can be a head coach for one of the proudest franchises in the NFL. You can try to turn around Russell Wilson and get him back to the Pro Bowl level he was, right? As opposed to maybe going to the Panthers or the Texans, right? Where you're going to draft a quarterback and hope it works out. At least with Russ, you know what Russell Wilson can be. You can't say the same for Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. I kind of put my clown face paint mask as I said that on because it's not easy to try and, bolster up some compliments for this Broncos head coaching vacancy here. Now, there has not been an interim named yet. I think it'll be Dom Capers. It's either going to be Dom Capers, who's a consultant. He's been an NFL head coach before. He was a DC for the Packers most recently for a long stretch of time. Or it's going to be the DC currently, which is Evero. Now, I want to get this out in the open right now. If you were to hire or promote Evero to be the interim head coach, well, then he's no longer your defensive coordinator. So when the season is over, you can't just relegate him back to being the DC. You either keep him on as head coach or you fire him and you lose him. With 2 games left, I don't think the Broncos want to lose Evero because my guess is the next head coach might keep Evero for what he's done this year. Now, if they believe Evero is gone no matter what at the end of the season, well, maybe let him be the head coach for the last 2 games to see sort of a little bit of a sample, a little bit of a trial by fire, if you will, and see if he could be a good head coaching candidate. We got a super chat coming in from Baxter. Top 3 Hackett replacements. Bruce Arians, wow, Jim Harbaugh, and Dan Quinn. I think Bruce Arians, the quarterback whisperer, is probably done in the NFL as a head coach, right? It seems like people are sort of moving on from Bruce Arians. Whatever happened in Tampa, I don't know if we want to move that to Denver. I love Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh spent 4 years with the 49ers. Producer Patrick, of those 4 years, do you know how many times he went to the NFC Championship game?
Was it 3?
3 out of the 4, including his first year.
Crazy.
Like, Jim Harbaugh, I know he only recently had success at Michigan, but NFL to college is like apples to oranges. He would be a fantastic hire for Denver.
Petey.
And then Dan Quinn, who was supposed to be the head coach all along, and then Hackett kind of came out of nowhere and stole the job. Patrick.
I'll throw this name out there.
Yeah.
What about bringing Gary Kubiak out of retirement?
Gary Kubiak. Okay, so Super Bowl winning head coach right there.
Isn't his son
So
on
Clint
the
Kubiak
coaching
is
staff?
currently the quarterback passing game coordinator. He's also the play caller for this team after Hackett handed those duties over. I think you probably don't want to go the route of young first-time head coach back-to-back times. I think you want to go the route of let's go get a former NFL head coach, right? Let's get someone on their second try. A Dan Quinn or a Frank Reich. And I like Frank Reich a lot. We'll talk more about him. I think that's going to be the route that the Broncos go down. Now, I do want to publicize this really quickly. If we get a $100 super chat today, we're popping champagne, baby. Right? We've got it. It's on ice pretty much. We're popping champagne for a $100 super chat. We'll spray the studio. I'll pay the consequences. My boss, Brett, is going to be pissed. But you know what? He's not here right now, so we can make it happen. $100 super chat for Hackett getting fired, and we're popping champagne. We got nearly 200 people watching, only 32 likes. Hey, hit that thumbs up icon if you're ready for the Broncos to turn everything around, because there is more that needs to be done than just moving on from Hackett. Hackett didn't throw 4 interceptions yesterday. It's a good time to fire the guy because it should have been done a long time ago, and lose 51-14. It's easy to look at that and go fire the coach with a fight on the sideline as well. But he didn't throw 2 picks in the first quarter. He didn't throw a pick 6. There are much bigger issues. Not bigger. There are a lot more issues on this team, right? Hackett's probably the biggest, and you had to start there, but you have to make a lot more changes to this team as well. Now, before we jump into sort of an official breakdown of this news here, we're going to have a mailbag later on. So if you want to get on the mailbag, you can super chat like Baxter and a couple other you guys have so far, like Maximus, and get on the mailbag that way. Or use hashtag Broncos. You have to use hashtag Broncos just like that in your question in the chat right now. And producer Patrick Seaman's going to pull his favorite questions and put them on screen. So hashtag Broncos or super chat to get on the mailbag. If you got any questions about who the replacement options are or where the Broncos go from here, that is the best way to get on screen. And if you super chat, you skip the line and you get to number 1. All right, here we go. I think we're ready to just about jump into this. We got 215 people watching, 48 likes. Hit that thumbs up icon. $100 super chat. We're popping champagne for Hackett, who can't hack it, is out a mile high. We ready to do this thing? All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's jump into a breakdown of Nathaniel Hackett getting fired today. Breaking news this morning, the Broncos have relieved Nathaniel Hackett of his head coaching duties, and hallelujah, Hackett's a good guy and all, but let's be honest. From the get-go, it was obvious he was not cut out to be an NFL head coach, and losing on Christmas Day in an absolute bloodbath of a massacre, giving up a 50-burger to Baker Mayfield and the Rams, while a fight is breaking out on your sideline, clearly was just the last straw for this ownership in George Paton, and they pulled the plug with 2 weeks left on the season and have relieved Hackett of his duties. The news was first broke by Tom Pelissero tweeting out the Broncos fired Nathaniel Hackett, and I, for one, am ecstatic. I mean, you never talk about a man's job, and it's a little bit crude to celebrate someone getting fired, but at the same time, this fan base, this franchise is way too proud to be this bad right now, right? To be on a 7-year playoff drought, to be going on to their 6th head coach in 8 seasons in 2023. Only 1 winning season since the Super Bowl. Or not even then. I mean, it has just gotten way too bad. Now, the Broncos themselves released a statement. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. We're not going to do any popcorn reading. But there was one little bit that I thought really jumped out to me. And so did Eric Delilah, who covers the team, who tweeted out a quote saying, "I will lead our head coaching search." Now, this is Walton Penner, right? This is the Walton Penner ownership here. "With support from our ownership group and George, whom I have confidence in as our general manager." So if you were wondering if George Paton is also going to get the axe, this says to me George Paton is safe, but this next head coaching hire, which it seems like Payton's not going to be leading the charge on, right? It's going to be Rob Walton and the Penner ownership group who will take control of this head coaching hire. If this head coaching hire does not go swimmingly well early on, George Paton might be the next one to go, which is a bummer because I think he's a great GM. He just made 2 catastrophic mistakes, right? Worse than invading Russia in the winter. He hired Nathaniel Hackett, and he traded for Russell Wilson. Now, pretty much all 32 GMs would have made that trade for Russ most likely. So I don't think anyone's going to really hold that too much against him. But the Hackett hire, that's going to go down as one of the worst head coaching hires. I mean, first off, when was the last time a first-year head coach got fired in their first season before Urban Meyer? And Urban Meyer was fired not because he was just bad. He was just, an imbecile. Before that, you got to go back to like the 70s. It's been a long time to realize wow, do we make a mistake and we have to rectify this before this first season is even up. Now, I want to ask this question to you all. We're going to get to more quotes, and I got some more takes and whatnot, but I need to know what your one-word reaction to Hackett being fired is. I'm going to go hallelujah, and I can't even spell it, but I want to know your one-word reaction to Hackett being fired. I just want to say one more time, Hackett, nice guy, cool dude, would love to get a beer with him. Don't want him to be my NFL head coach, right? That was pretty apparent. I mean, I got some notes and whatnot here. It was obvious to me from the get-go, right? Week 1, trotting out Brandon McManus for a 64-yard field goal on 4th and short with Russell Wilson at quarterback. At the time, Russ was playing decently well in that Seahawks game too. Wouldn't you think you'd go for it with Russell Wilson since you traded heaven and earth to get for him? No. So that right there was a big, oh shit. I think this coach might be awful, right? And then it just looked worse and worse and worse as the seasons progressed. In Hackett's defense, definitely didn't help the amount of primetime games that magnified the issues going on in Denver and the injuries. I mean, the guy did get gutted across the board on offense and defense. Loses his left tackle. Loses his 2 top edge rushers in Randy Gregory and Bradley Chubb. The leader of his defense, Justin Simmons, goes on IR after the first week. Loses Tim Patrick before week 1. Loses Javonte Williams. Like, the list goes on and on. But ultimately, he was in the deep end from the start, and the guy was just treading water, just trying to stay afloat, and losing to the Rams and having Dalton Reisner yelling at Brett Rippon on the sideline, saying, was it? Come and get it, Rip? Come and get it. It was just embarrassing, and it was on full display for the entire country on Christmas Day. And the new ownership decided, this is enough. This is embarrassing. We're going to make a change anyway. We're going to make it right now. Now, listen, we break down all Broncos news and rumors here at the channel. We're hitting the news right now, and the rumors are coming, and they're all going to be about who Hackett is going to be replaced by. So subscribe to the channel today so you don't miss out on any Hackett replacements videos. We're going to be rolling out pretty much day by day until they make a decision, just the latest buzz out there. So hit that big red button and subscribe. And if you've already subscribed, hit me with the Broncos country. Let's get a new head coach today. All right. I have some early replacements I want to hit on. So this is a list of 10 names just to keep an eye on. It's a mixture of what I would like to see happen and what I'm hearing across the league right now and the buzz. Frank Reich, I think, would be a phenomenal hire. I'll get to more on him in a second. The former Colts head coach. Dan Quinn, the DC in Dallas. He's been doing great things. Of course, he was with the Falcons, 28-3. DeMeco Ryans, the DC with the Niners. He's been getting a lot of buzz. Then there's Sean Payton. We'll talk more about him in a second, the former Saints head coach. You have your own internal option, Evero, the DC, who could be a great option and hire. Probably a bit early, though, right? I think it's a bit premature to go that direction. Shane Steichen, he's the OC in Philly. He's sort of like Kellen Moore last year, maybe even Hackett, of like up-and-coming offensive coordinator at a really good team. Seems to me like it might just be a carbon copy of the Hackett hire, though. Leslie Frazier, former Vikings head coach. He's been the DC with Buffalo a while. I think he's just probably a little bit past his time. He's been getting a lot of buzz. I ultimately would pass on him, though. Could be a great coach, but I'd rather go a different direction. Ben Johnson, that's the OC for Detroit. He's making Jared Goff look like the Lions may have won that trade with Matthew Stafford despite not getting a Super Bowl. So that's definitely tossed his name into the mix. Then there's Shane Waldron. This is the offensive coordinator in Seattle. He kind of got the best out of Russ. Might Denver decide, hey, we're tied to Russell Wilson. We need to maximize Russell Wilson while he's here under contract. How about we get someone who's worked with him before, who has a proven record of making Russ look like a potential MVP quarterback? That would be his old OC. And then there's Kellen Moore, who's just kind of the hot, young, next potential Sean McVay. He's sort of kind of come down to earth a little bit compared to last head coaching cycle, but Kellen Moore is definitely a name to keep an eye on. But let's talk about Sean Payton. Sean Payton is definitely the hottest, the biggest buzz name right now of the bunch. And Walton Penner, ownership group, you give him a blank check, right? You write a blank check for Sean Payton, and whatever it takes to get him to Denver, you make it happen. Because although maybe Shane Waldron could get the best out of Russ, I'm willing to wager, not my own money, but Walton Penner's money, that Sean Payton would absolutely be the best get for Denver. Now, does Sean Payton want to come to the Broncos? He has been rumored to be interested in a couple jobs like the Cowboys or like the Chargers. Well, what if those jobs don't open up? What if the Cowboys win a playoff game and they keep Mike McCarthy, right? What if Brandon Staley gets the Chargers to the playoffs and they win a playoff game and they hold on to him? Maybe the Broncos become one of the more attractive destinations over the Carolina Panthers or the Houston Texans. Now, Adam Schefter on Christmas Eve tweeted this out, and it's got some juiciness to it. Sean Payton is so interested in returning to coaching in the NFL that he's already putting together an all-star staff that includes former Broncos head coach Vic Fangio as his potential DC. This is the hiccup we run into. If Sean Payton is adamant on, I want to have what is the best defensive coordinator, in my opinion, on the market, Vic Fangio, I don't see Fangio, especially after some of the words I said last year, wanting to come back to the Broncos. So maybe if Sean Payton gets a blank check from the Broncos and it's, you can bring Fangio if he agrees, but if not, we still want you with or without him. Maybe Sean Payton decides, you know what, money talks. I'm sorry, Vicathy. That's why I called him last year, by the way, when I got mad at him. We're going to have to go a different direction at DC because I'm going to Denver. And if you don't want to come, I understand, but I can't turn down a blank check. Ultimately, Frank Reich is my number one candidate in terms of realistic-ish options, right? Sean Payton is awesome. I would love to get Sean Payton. To me, that doesn't seem all that likely. So of the actual realistic options out there, Frank Reich, I think, would be a fantastic hire for a couple of reasons. One, he's got head coaching experience. This has to be a head coach that's done it before and is not learning what it's like to be a head coach for the first time. Two, he was really good with the Colts. He finished with an above 500 record. He got fired because his GM gave him a different week one starting quarterback every single season he was there. He had no continuity. I'll promise you this much, Russell Wilson will be his quarterback for at least the next 2 seasons. So we can at least start to put something down that's a little bit more permanent and not so year to year at the most important position in sports. We're going to talk about Russell Wilson in just a moment, but BetUS, our sportsbook partner, they've got a great deal for Broncos country. When you go to chatsports.com/bet and you enter promo code Broncos125, they will hook you up with a 125% deposit bonus. Now, BetUS is going to be one of the first sports books out there to start rolling out odds on who the next head coach for Denver will be. So if you got a good feeling on where this ownership group is going to go, make sure you make all of your bets and all of your picks. Do not bet on Denver against Kansas City or the Chargers. That's not what I'm advertising. But bet on who you think might be the next head coach at chatsports.com/bet. Promo code Broncos125. I want to ask this question off the bat, though. Who is your number one replacement for the next head coach of the Denver Broncos after Nathaniel Hackett? I gave you a list of my top 10 names. Curious who you got number one. Of the realistic options, it's Frank Reich. Of the dream list, it's Sean Payton. But I'm kind of putting those two things separate. Let me know in the comment section below. All right, before we get on out of here, let's talk about Russell Wilson a little bit. Russell Wilson sucks, right? You got to bench Russ, I think. He was benched against the Rams, and I wish it came earlier so there was a bigger statement. Because it came so late, it was almost of a, hey, we're just going to sit you down for the last couple of minutes. But Russell Wilson needs to be shut down. Put him on IR so his ego's not hurt because he does not like that. But let him start rehabbing, getting ready for next season. He has just as many touchdown passes as bathrooms in his record-setting purchase of his home in Denver. So you got to shut down Russell Wilson. Play Brett Rippon. You're going to lose these next 2 games. That's just the cold, hard truth, with or without Russ. So shut him down, in my opinion, and just let him get ready for next season, which they should have done a while ago, which Broncos YouTube channel talked about that like a month ago? Oh, yeah, this one right here. I appreciate all of you guys who clicked on to today's video. If you have not subscribed, please go ahead and do so. We give you guys the latest Broncos coverage, and we're going to get you guys up to date on all the news and rumors on who the 6th head coach in the last 8 seasons for the Denver Broncos will be when you subscribe. we got a mailbag coming up next, so use hashtag Broncos, or you can super chat on the mailbag. We just had a super chat pop in from a good friend of mine, Ryan. Ryan is all over YouTube.com today, so let's throw the super chat on screen. It wasn't Kevin Stefanski. He's safe for now. I think he'll probably be safe, but Hackett, oh, he's toast, baby. Ryan, thank you so much for the super chat. Little wink, wink right back at you. Appreciate you, my man. But let me know what questions you got, whether it's about the interim head coach. Hasn't been announced as far as I'm seeing on Twitter.com. Yeah, they have not announced it. I think Dom Capers makes the most sense. That way you have the option of keeping Evero at DC for next season. If you promote Evero, he's no longer defensive coordinator. He is interim head coach. And when the season is over, then you have to make a decision. Keep him as head coach or let him go. But you can't have him go back to DC. Dom Capers, he's a consultant. He's just helping out. He would not mind filling in, standing on the sideline for the last 2 weeks. Although, it's going to be cold. Like, if you're Dom Capers and it's that cold, do you go, let someone else do it? I'd rather sit in the box. You know what I mean? I don't want to stand on the sideline. I watched how cold it was last week. Now, I do want to make this offer once again. We get a $100 super chat. We're popping champagne on the channel for the firing of Nathaniel Hackett. It's a sad thing to celebrate someone getting their job taken away from them. But this guy is taking away a lot of joy from Broncos country. So you know what? Champagne popping if we get a $100 super chat. I saw Mr. Alaska in the chat earlier. Elia Munson, some of the big ballers of the channel, if you will, here. Gonna make the big call here. All right, let's see what the chat is saying right now. We have 280 people watching right now. I mean, one, we need some questions, but two, that's more than we had watching the Broncos-Rams game yesterday, which says a lot about where the happiness is right now. So use hashtag Broncos. If you don't use hashtag Broncos, the software can't pull it. It just doesn't work that well. So use that. Any questions you got of just replacements, what do you think about this candidate, all that stuff, let me know. We'll get it into our mailbag, which we'll jump into in just a second here. Steve saying, Pete Carroll, someone needs to put Russ in his place. I have heard some rumors of Pete Carroll might be getting a force of, you should retire soon from Seattle, especially if they don't make the playoffs. Now, no one had them making the playoffs this year, so it's a bit unfair, but they did win a handful of games early on and kind of have fallen apart lately, so I don't think Pete Carroll wants to reunite with Russ when Russ is bad, but I don't think you can rule out anything at this moment. Add Eric Bieniemy to the list. You know what? Here's my stance on Eric Bieniemy. Yes, it looks great when you are attached to the Kansas City Chiefs offense, but when over half of the league has interviewed you the last 2 years and no one has given you a real thought, that probably says everything you need to know about what higher-ups think about Eric Bieniemy. I've heard about some skeletons in his closet, maybe not being the best overall leader and sort of a face of a franchise. So for that reason, I'm passing on Bieniemy, and I think you could just be entering Hackett 2.0 of early fire if you go that direction. Overall, though, I just don't want another first-time head coach for this team. I just think this team needs to get a head coach that has done it before and can learn from their mistakes, like Dan Quinn, right? Like Frank Reich. Okie dokie. So, yeah, Frank Reich is a good candidate. We're going to get into a mailbag here. We got the green light. So, use hashtag Broncos. Now, if you want to skip the line and guarantee a spot on screen, we already had a couple super chats come in. We'll include those. If you super chat, you go right to the top of the line. It's like a fast pass at Disney. Rest in peace, fast pass. Now they charge you for it. Yeah, it's almost as bad as Hackett was this year. What's going on there? Okay, so here we go. Let's jump into some mailbag questions you guys have following the firing of Nathaniel Hackett. Welcome into a Denver Broncos mailbag show. This was taped during our live show on Monday, just a couple minutes after the Nathaniel Hackett news broke. So if things have changed by the time you're watching this, just bear with us. But we're going to answer the questions you guys asked during our live show about where the Broncos go from here after firing Hackett in the middle of the season, well, before the season ended, after giving up a 50 burger on Christmas Day and a fight breaks out on your sideline between your NFL Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee, Dalton Reisner, and your backup quarterback, Brett Rippon. So we got some questions we're going to run through from you all coming in from maybe Jalen, oh no, different last name, Gabriel Vigil. Do you think the coach and Russell's bad vibes made Russell suck? No, I think Hackett's a really good guy, right? I think no one's going to really question that, like his character and whatnot. And Hackett was very much of the belief of empowering Russell Wilson. Maybe that was to a fault, right? He was all in on Russ, and when Russ was bad, he was a little afraid to go away from his quarterback. So I don't think those two are correlated, and that's why Russell Wilson sucks, or sucked this year at least. Next question coming in via Super Chat from Bonkius Maximus. Hackett is a good guy. It's that he just isn't a fit for a head coach job. The only reason why we hired him was to try and lure in Aaron Rodgers. Yep, like I said, I think Hackett's a good guy. Would love to get a beer with him. Just not cut out to be an NFL head coach. Now, the part about Aaron Rodgers is very interesting because, I mean, everyone was adamant that that's not why they hired him. And maybe that's true. But that's definitely going to make for a great ESPN 30 for 30 in maybe a couple of years of, was the Broncos head coaching hire just completely fueled on Aaron Rodgers coming over? Because if so, boy, oh boy, oh boy, is that an all-time blunder right there. Next question coming in from Junior. Should the Broncos bring Bill Belichick if the Patriots fire him? I'm looking at our Patriots guy right now. He's shaking his head. Yeah. I mean, who's going to say no to? I think there are a lot of teams that would fire their head coach to get Bill Belichick on their team. Now, I don't see the Patriots firing him. He's not having a great year this season. I mean, a complete meltdown against the Raiders the other week. But if Bill Belichick wants to coach for an NFL team, hell yes. Like, sign me up to get Belichick to the Broncos. That is a major, major, major long shot, though. I do not see that happening. Now, here's the big question that I think a lot of people are asking right now. Who is more to blame this year, right? Who are you pointing the finger at? Is it Hackett or is it Russell Wilson? Because Hackett got fired after losing 51-14 against the Rams. But in Hackett's defense, he didn't throw 4 interceptions. Like, you have to be able to separate execution and coaching. And Hackett's not the one who threw that god-awful pick 6. Or the 2 first-quarter interceptions by Russell Wilson. Now, Hackett is the head coach of the team that had a fight break out on his sideline during the game between his starting left guard and his backup quarterback. So that's the kind of stuff you can put on Hackett. Overall, I think Hackett is more guilty this season. Russ has been bad, and it's pretty insane that for how bad he was, someone else was able to be worse. But I ultimately do say Hackett was more to blame this season. Let's go Broncos next up on the show. The Broncos should hire the Seahawks offensive coordinator, that's Shane Waldron, from Russell Wilson's statistical best 3 seasons. So Shane Waldron is, I think, the guy you're getting after here. And it's definitely an interesting path because Broncos ownership is looking at this going, we are stuck with Russ, right? 2023, he's here. 2024, he's here. Now after that, you could move on from Russell Wilson, and it's still a dead cap hit of about $49 million, which would be an NFL record. But ultimately, if they decide, because we're stuck with him, this hire has to be geared around Russ, which might be a bad idea, don't you think? To make a hire solely based on how the worst player on your team arguably played this year, to empower him, that might backfire on you. I think you should make the best hire for the team and not just for one individual. That's my 2 cents on the matter. So Shane Waldron, definitely a name to keep an eye on for. Let's get to JKM's question next here. Terrell Davis for head coach. Peyton Manning, too, is his OC. No, right? You don't go the Colts path, right? I'm sorry to Jeff Saturday, but Saturday is no longer for the boys. Saturday is for Colts losing. Like, you can't do that type of path of Terrell Davis, Peyton Manning. Now, I would do Peyton Manning. Terrell Davis, no. But Peyton Manning, he's probably the smartest mind in football right now. But I appreciate the idea of going down that Colts path, which it did get them 1 win, but that's probably all it's going to be. We're going to get to more questions you guys have in just a second. but it is all the Broncos all the time here at the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. So subscribe to the channel today if you're looking for the latest Broncos news and rumors, like, say, when the head coach gets fired, who are the top replacements, right? Who are the names you should keep an eye on for? Hit that big red button and subscribe to the channel today. We got a question coming in from Baxter. Dark horse candidate, Greg Roman, that's the Ravens OC. He would at least make our offense entertaining. I mean, Greg Roman's been getting some fire buzz from the Ravens as of late, which it's very common, of course, to hire another team's coordinator. Not sure how common it is to hire a coordinator who's currently on the hot seat at his own team right now. The thing with Greg Roman is the Ravens have been electric under Lamar Jackson, but they've sort of become a bit, I'm not going to say one-dimensional, but as the years have progressed from Lamar Jackson's MVP season, defenses have begun to figure them out more and more. They're still hard to beat, don't get me wrong, but I'm not sure if Greg Roman is the best guy for the job. Also, he has no previous head coaching experience, and I think the best decision for this team is to get a guy who has previous head coaching experience. Unlike the previous 3 hires, which have ultimately all ended in quick and short dismissals. We got another question coming in from Ragnar. Add Eric Bieniemy to the list, bro. I've got a list of my top 10 candidates. We'll throw it on there. I don't have Eric Bieniemy on my list for 2 reasons. One, he has interviewed with about or over half of the NFL already, and no one's given him any real consideration. That should be a red flag to you. When over 50% of NFL teams talk to him, and after one interview, decide you're not a part of our final list, for the most part, that's not a good sign. 2, there's a decent amount of skeletons in his closet. Now, he knows the area, right? Was at Boulder for quite some time. But ultimately, I am passing on Eric Bieniemy. I do have an early replacements list right here. Top 10 names. It's kind of a mixture of who I would like to see the Broncos hire versus what I am hearing across the league as some buzz candidates, some popular names in the coaching circles right now to keep an eye on for. So that's my list. Frank Reich is my number 1. Sean Payton is my dream number 1. I don't know if he'll end up really considering the Broncos, especially if he wants Vic Fangio as his DC, because that could be a problem. But who is your top Hackett replacement? I got a list of 10 names right there. Let me know who your number 1 Hackett replacement is in the comment section below. Let's get to this question coming in from DCX Viper. Do you trade Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy in a package next offseason for high draft picks? I think Jerry Jeudy is someone you may want to hold on to right now just because he has played well really since all the trade deadline buzz. And I'm interested in holding on to Jeudy, picking up his 5th-year option. Courtland Sutton, on the table for sure. Really, even Jeudy is on the table, don't get me wrong. I think every single player on this roster, except for Patrick Surtain, even Justin Simmons, as hard as that pill that may be to swallow, is you pick up the phone for. Surtain's the only guy I'm sending them straight to voicemail. But Sutton and Jeudy, if someone calls the Broncos offering a 2nd-round pick for Courtland Sutton, tell me you wouldn't think long and hard about it, especially with sort of the injuries and his tendency to vanish for stretches of a season, year in and year out, ever since his breakout year. I would definitely listen to all offers except for Patrick Surtain. Dolph World, Walton Penner should buy out Russ's contract this offseason. That's a big one, right? I mean, they are the richest owners in the NFL. I'm not sure if they're willing to just move on from Russell Wilson after 1 season. My guess is they want to make a hire for a new head coach that they think can salvage Russell Wilson in Denver and give that a shot before pulling the plug after 1 season. Now, if they were to move on from Russell Wilson after 2023, the dead cap hit, it's in the neighborhood of $89 million. That's about twice the NFL record. So that would still be a huge buyout for them, essentially. I don't see it happening. I think you are glued to Russ for 2 more seasons. And after 2 more years, still a big buyout, but it's much more manageable. But they are the richest owners, so don't rule anything out completely. More questions coming your way in just a moment. But it's cold out there, and if you are brave enough to go to the Broncos-Chargers Week 18 game at home, do it in style. Be some of the fans who are still showing up and not a part of the tardies and not a part of the absentees by wearing this awesome Broncos beanie. Now, it's on sale, but just for a limited time, kind of a post-Christmas sale, if you will, when you go to chatsports.com/DEN beanie. Now, I've got that link for you all in the comments and the description of today's show. Sharks9200, do you think that we put John Elway or Peyton Manning at head coach, and we see if someone like Kevin Stefanski or a different head coach that might get fired in the offseason? So I think you're maybe talking about Elway and Manning as an interim head coach, because I don't think Elway's definitely not going to be a head coach next season. Peyton Manning, I don't think he has interest in being a head coach right now. He's got a great legacy with the Broncos. You know, it's a quick and easy way to ruin that and kind of stay in it, sort of like Elway. Become the head coach and potentially lose games. And people aren't going to remember you as much as the savior or the guy who won a Super Bowl, but as the guy who was sort of like Elway and the last couple of years sort of somewhat leave a bad taste in your mouth despite some great success. Now, Kevin Stefanski or, say, Mike Vrabel, right? Those are two guys that I think would be surprising fires, no doubt about it. If Mike Vrabel is fired, he's your number one candidate. No doubt about it. Kevin Stefanski is fired, he's definitely going to be a top candidate. He's got head coaching experience. I don't know if Stefanski is the route you want to go, though. I would probably say Vrabel for sure. Stefanski, you got to do a lot of interviews. Last question coming in from Mean3V. Broncos O-line is the pick with our first round. Yes. There are some great tackles out there. Peter Skoronski is the left tackle for Northwestern. I love him. Paris Johnson Jr. out of Ohio State. The hiccup is when the Broncos are on the clock, which is whenever the 49ers are on the clock, it's probably going to be between, 24 to 32. Those two guys are unlikely to be around. Now, the NFL draft is always full of surprises, right? No one saw what's-his-face being Trayvon Walker being the number one pick last year at this time a year ago. So anything is possible. You could see some slips and people start to fall. That happens. Skoronski, Paris Johnson, Terrence Osiris, an offensive guard from Florida. Those are some of the three best offensive linemen. It will be interesting to see if all the top guys are gone. Do they go rogue and go like Hendon Hooker or Anthony Richardson and have those guys sit for a year behind Russ? That is a possibility, kind of like Jordan Love with the Packers. Appreciate everyone for tuning into this mailbag edition following the Nathaniel Hackett firing during our live show on Monday. If you did not get your question answered, get in the comment section, let me know, and I'll pop down there and answer all the remaining questions you guys have. We'll circle back. One-word reaction to Hackett being fired. Let me know what you guys are saying. Randy Gregory just got suspended one game. I'm guessing this is by the Broncos themselves or by the NFL? The NFL? Okay. Randy Gregory played 11 snaps yesterday. He got 2 penalties and he's suspended. Welcome back, buddy. I mean, that was just disgusting. So that's a bummer, but great. Threw a punch, yeah. Randy Gregory was an absolute train wreck. And when that signing was made, I was optimistic that, you know what, new spot, change of scenery. Hopefully you can get away from the off-the-field issues, the PEDs and all that kind of stuff. And he can hopefully play a full season. Not the case. He missed 9 games, and now he's suspended for another game. So, rock on, number 5. That sucks. So, not surprised, though. Now, listen, we do have a bottle of champagne here. $100 super chat. You're going to be the legend of this Hackett firing, and we're going to pop this bottle of champagne for you. I'll look at some other comments in the chat right now. But Mr. Alaska, Elia Munson, we got some big ballers here at the channel. If you're feeling up to it, $100 soupy, and we're going to be bathing in some champs right here. Uncle Rome's, Hackett cost himself the job. He did not know what he was doing. He didn't know how to run the base-wide offensive scheme. Mark Sherrod said it. We can't ignore the players who played for years. I agree that Hackett was toast really early on, and I feel so dumb when I think back to that Broncos-Cowboys preseason game. And it was like, the Broncos are looking great. They look disciplined. The Cowboys are getting penalized left and right. And look where we are now. A good reminder, the preseason means virtually nothing. So, funny how that works sometimes. Michael Frady, trade Russ. To who? Mars? No one is going to want to trade for a Russell Wilson 5-year, $235 million contract extension when he's coming off the worst year of his career and he's got the same amount of bathrooms in his house as touchdown passes this year. You'd have to give up a first-round pick, which you don't have, just to get him off of your team. It'd be worse than the Brock Osweiler trade from Houston to Cleveland a half-decade ago or so when it was the Texans who gave up picks just to move on from good old 6'10" Brock Osweiler. Hackett couldn't hack it. Yeah, that was apparent week one, in my opinion. The 64-yard field goal, I think we all collectively looked around and go, oh, snap. He's bad. Like, he's bad. This was we found out early on, oh, he's not going to make it. You know what I mean? Before we started filming, our Bears host here at Chat Sports was like, oh, you get Sean Payton back, you bring back Vic Fangio. Would Broncos country want Vic Fangio back? I was like, you know what? The firing for Vic Fangio last year, different mood than it is right now. When you fired Vic Fangio last year, it was kind of like putting an old dog down, right? It was like, we all know where this is going. Time to move on. This is not going to work out. Hackett, you're returning a puppy back to the shelter, right? You didn't even have him to go through all the bag of kibble you bought. It's like, this just does not work. He's peeing all over the house. He will not walk on a leash. He's biting at our neighbors. No. So that's the difference between those two right there. Kathy Land, I take Fangio as DC, not a head coach. If you can get Fangio to sign off on coming back and being the DC for a team he was the head coach of last year, you can solve a lot of world issues because that seems like that'd be a tough sell to make, but I'm all for it. Don't get me wrong. Vic Fangio with the Niners and with the Bears was the best defensive coordinator in football. That's what got him the Broncos job, right? He made the Niners defense a Super Bowl caliber defense. He got the Bears to the postseason 12-4, not from Mitch Trubisky and Matt Nagy's offense, but from that Vic Fangio defense. Randy, who is the interim? No interim named yet. I think it's going to be Dom Capers unless he bypasses it so he doesn't go and stand outside in the cold at Arrowhead and at Mile High. Evero is a possibility. Now, I've said before, though, if you promote Evero to interim head coach, he's no longer your defensive coordinator, which means you can't retain him. You can't just bring him back as DC next year, which I think Denver would like to do with the way outside of yesterday, which wasn't even 100% of the Broncos defense. Don't get me wrong, 50 points is a bad look. One was a pick six, so really a 40 burger for the defense. A 40 pizza or something, I don't know what it is. 40 taco? We'll have to name another 40 thing. But Russell Wilson threw 2 interceptions in the first quarter. They gave the Rams the football on the plus side of the 50. So the defense got off to a bad start, and they never recovered. Now, they never made a play, which is unlike them, but I think they would like to keep Evero as the DC next year if the next head coach would like to keep him, which does happen from time to time. Like, that's not unheard of. There have been a lot of instances where a great coordinator was held over through a regime change because they were doing a really good job. What about this question here? Who is more to blame this year, Hackett or Russell Wilson? Let's bring Patrick Seatman on as sort of an outside voice here, an outside viewer, a passive watcher. First off, did you watch the game yesterday? I hope not.
Well, I watched the first 2 quarters.
You deserve a Purple Heart for that.
And I was falling asleep.
Yep, good for you.
So I turned it off.
Good choice. Round of applause. Who do you think, right?
Who's more to blame?
Yeah.
It's still got to be. I don't know.
It's
right?
bad. It's bad. Let's be honest. It's bad.
I would go 60-40 leaning towards Hackett.
Right. I think the number one thing is it's not like the Jags last year where it was all on Urban Meyer. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of blame to go around here.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that need to be fixed. But I think Hackett is probably the biggest culprit.
Yeah.
He's probably 50%. Russ is 40%. And the other 10% is injuries.
Yeah.
You know, maybe even like injuries are 15%. Because there's a lot of injuries. They lead the NFL in players on IR, salary cap on IR, all that stuff here. Oh, Josina Anderson. Some initial names being discussed for the Broncos include Dan Quinn, Darrell Bevell, Eric Bieniemy, Sean Payton, DeMeco Ryans, and Shane Steichen. Interesting. So I had my list of 10. That did not include Darrell Bevell or Eric Bieniemy. But Dan Quinn, Bevell, Bieniemy, Payton, DeMeco Ryans, and Shane Steichen all on that list. Eric Bieniemy will always be a hot name in coaching, head coaching hire circles, because if you're tied to Patrick Mahomes, that's exactly where you want to be. If you can be Patrick Mahomes' water boy, like, you're going to make a decent amount of change. So when the half of the league interviews you and passes on you, that should be a big sign of maybe there's something more to it than just the numbers. Now, what's funny is when Hackett got hired, I remember an interview he did with Part of My Take at Barstool, and they were asking about the hiring process, right? The questions they asked and whatnot. And Hackett's like, yeah, they really didn't ask a whole lot of football questions. It was more about just getting to know me as a person. Maybe they should have asked some football questions this time, because Hackett's a cool guy. Probably shouldn't be an NFL head coach, though. So I took away from that of, oh, yeah, like, it's more than just, hey, your offense was third in the NFL last year. Like, that's not all it is. But maybe that should be some factor into the equation, because it can't just be, you're awesome. You're someone I'd go on a bachelor party with. You know what I mean? That can't be just the criteria for becoming an NFL head coach. All right, let's see what else people are saying here. If we don't get another super chat, we're going to turn the shot clock on here. It is a busy day here at Chat Sports. So we got some studio space issues, and we'll have to turn it over. We can't put this thing potentially on loop, though. We're going to shot clock on here. If we don't get a super chat in the next 90 seconds or so, we're going to have to relinquish the studio space here. Mario, y'all need to be fired from your jobs. No, I don't want to be fired from my job. Michael, did you hear people chanting for Tebow to come back? As tight end? As quarterback? Not as head coach. Russ the Bust, that's nice. Broncos season, I want the Lions head coach. Yeah, Dan Campbell's not leaving Detroit. Their OC, Ben Johnson, that's an option. Plenty of Seahawks fans here. This is not good for Seattle. I mean, the Broncos might win. Well, they're not. Actually, no. They're playing the Chiefs and the Chargers. They're not going to win. But if they were playing worse teams, they could have won those games, and that wouldn't be good for you guys. So, no Jalen Carter.
I actually have a question for you, Petey.
Yeah.
So, Matthew Peterson, he has a theory about interim head coaches.
Oh, yeah. The interim head coach interim head coach boost.
Does it apply?
So, my theory is if you fire your head coach, your interim head coach is going to win one of his first two games. Right? There's just that sort of boost. Rich Bisaccia last year. His first game, was it not against the Broncos? And was it not a win? Jeff Saturday, his first game against the Raiders. Yeah. I thought this year it would be Frank Reich loses. Right, Frank Reich's fired. Jeff Saturday takes over. He then beats the Raiders. The Raiders then fire Josh McDaniels. That in turn beats the Broncos. And then the Broncos fire Hackett. And then that in turn wins the next game. I am a big believer of if you fire your coach, that interim head coach is going to come in there and he's going to get the troops riled up and ready to go. And they're going to give you one upset. I mean, they're going to be underdogs the rest of the season, but they'll give you one true upset. Now, the Chargers and the Chiefs, maybe the Chargers in Week 18, although they're getting healthy with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. The Chiefs are a wagon. I don't see them going into Arrowhead. It'll be, 16 straight losses? Going back to Obama's presidency. So I don't see it's just too short. If we had some more games, maybe we would have the bust. We would have had the boost. Okie dokie. So, we get a super chat? The timer's getting up there. No, we went for 2.5 minutes. Okay. So, with no super chat coming in, we might be able to put this on loop. Can you see if you can put it on loop without recording it before it started. That way, for everyone that joined a bit late, you can watch the beginning of the show and you won't miss out. So let's get executive producer Jeffrey Cooperstein in here, and we'll figure it out for you guys. In the meantime, let me read some comments in the chat right now. Chargers all day against the Chiefs in the playoffs. Healthy guys coming back, potentially. Who's the next man up ahead coach? Dom Capers or Evero is the most likely option here. We got more tweets from Josina Anderson. Regarding the Broncos, a league source emphasized fresh off conversations that from a macro view now, it makes sense for Denver to bring in someone with familiarity with Russell Wilson, yet the process plays out. Dan Quinn and Darrell Bevell fit that bill, at least off top. You know what? Let's do this. I like this tweet a lot from Josina Anderson. I'm going to shoot it over to you, Patrick. And let's just kind of add this, and we'll kind of cold open it into is the cut already out? Potentially? Okay, that's fine then. We were just cold open, added the names. That's all right, no problem. Are we able to put it on loop? No? Okay, I thought there was a way to put it on loop. No super chats coming in. I'll give some more shout outs, see what people are saying in the chat right now. Maybe Richard Sherman wants to coach. I don't think it's a good time to go that route of fun name, former player. No. I want to go someone who's been a head coach before and not be an embarrassing laughingstock back-to-back seasons. That's my 2 cents on this. Gunny D, you can't eat Wilson's contract because of the dead money. I think you're stuck with Russ for 2 more years at the very least. After 2024, it's under $50 million dead cap hit. You could make that happen. It's over $100 million right now, and it's $90 million the next season. There's just no way you're getting around it. I also want to quickly verbalize here that George Paton is likely going to be retained as the Broncos head coach, GM. The statement made by ownership included Payton being a part of the head coaching search. Now, I did not say that he would be leading the search. It's going to be on the ownership. George Paton, despite being the GM, is not going to be one calling the shots this time because he struck out the first time, and you only get 1 strike usually as a GM to find a new head coach. $107 million and $85 million respectively. Yep, it's just way too big to move on from. Even though you got the richest owners in the NFL, they're going to want to see Russell Wilson with a new head coach for 1 season, right? They're going to want to believe, oh, we got a super chat coming in from Ronald. We'll quickly reset the shot clock. Ronald with a $2 super chat. Thank you so much. I want Sean Payton to be our head coach. That would be a dream hire. Sean Payton is probably the best option to salvage Russell Wilson in Denver. You write him a blank check. That's what you have to do. You write him a blank check, and you hope that the Cowboys and the Chargers don't fire their head coaches. And if that happens, the Broncos might make his list of places he will go. I mean, thinking of some head coaching vacancies coming up, we already have the Panthers and the Colts. Now the Broncos will be added to that. The Cardinals will probably pop up on it. I don't think Cliff Kingsbury is coming back next year. The AFC South, I think Mike Vrabel's safe. Texans, we talked about. Jags are fine. No one in the NFC East. No one in the AFC East. NFC North is pretty good. AFC North, there might not be a whole bunch of openings unless I'm missing. Pete Carroll could retire. But if the Chargers and the Cowboys, if they keep their head coaches, tell me Denver's not at least somewhat more attractive over the Cardinals, the Panthers, and the Colts and the Texans. They're at least in the mix. I'm not saying they're a clear-cut head and shoulders above the rest, but they're at least in the mix, that's for sure. We're going to end on this one right here, unless we get another super chat coming in. Who is your top Hackett replacement? $100 super chat. I remind you guys, we pop open this bottle of champagne. Give me your top Hackett replacement, and then we'll sign off here. Let Russ cook. Maybe microwave meals. That is it. Russell Wilson should be taken far away from the kitchen. Give Payton Walmart money. Yeah, there's a lot of money at the Waltons. So cash, that's not an issue right now. But rich people don't like to be done with their money. That's how usually they stay rich. And a dumb way to move on to spend your money is to move on from Russell Wilson like that. They're probably not interested because then you got to go pay another quarterback too. Peyton Manning, that would be very fun. I don't envision Manning wanting to become a head coach this quickly. He's got a great legacy right now. A good way to ruin that legacy, or not ruin, that's harsh, but to stain it maybe a bit, would be to become a head coach and not work out well. He probably enjoys getting paid to watch Monday Night Football with Eli. Might not be as fulfilling as a head coach, but for now, I'm guessing he's going to stay on his couch. What was wrong with Tebow at quarterback in the first place? Okay. I don't know if we have time to unpack all of that, but just go look up Tim Tebow's stats, and that should, answer the question for you. He threw like what? Not even 12 touchdowns when he was the Broncos quarterback? I mean, shout out to Marius Thomas against the Steelers in overtime, but that is his only claim to fame. Just to get him off TV, yeah, they're so annoying. I don't know. I like the Manning cast. They got good guests. The guests kind of make or break the show. I will be honest, though, getting Joe Buck over there, that definitely has devalued the Manning cast. All right, back on track here. We need someone from the outside to come in. I think the Broncos need to hire someone with previous head coaching experience indeed. No Super Chats coming in, so we're going to have to give up the studio spot right now. Appreciate all of you guys who tuned in for our live show right here of Broncos firing head coach Nathaniel Hackett with 2 games remaining in the season. I can't say I'm surprised. I can't say I'm shocked. I think we're all ready to start the next chapter of Broncos football, and whoever the head coach is, hopefully is a bit more prepared for the job, because Hackett simply was not. He was in over his head, ahead of his skis, and just could not get the head coaching position figured out and nailed down. Ultimately, though, it's the Rams game that probably was the last nail in his coffin. Giving up a 50-burger to Baker Mayfield and a 4-win Rams team on Christmas Day with the whole country watching, and then watching a fight break out on your sideline, sort of was a beautiful metaphor of you're getting beat horribly on the field and you can't really control your sideline. What are you doing? And that was it. And Hackett fired after a 4-11 career with the Denver Broncos, and that will go down as probably worse than the McDaniels hire. It's a tough argument to make, but I think you can make a good case for just the overall hire with the talent that this team had. A lot of injuries, but the talent was there in a lot of spots. Just could not get it figured out. So we'll sign off. Appreciate everyone for joining us here on our live show for this firing. We'll get you guys some Hackett replacements and all the latest buzz and rumors in the coming days here. So subscribe to the channel if you haven't.